Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to talk about Fusion Strike Pokémon. Because it seems like Fusion Strike Pokémon are already done. Now, I think I need to be clear at this stage what I mean when I say done. I don't mean no one's ever going to play Fusion Strike Pokémon again, because we got Mew Genesect right now, which is the best deck in the game. And they are both Fusion Strike Pokémon, and they work because they are amazing Fusion Strike Pokémon. Genesect lets you draw until you've got a number of cards in hand equal to your Fusion Strike Pokémon in play, hopefully 6, and that is not limited to once per turn, just once per turn per Genesect, so 4 Genesect could potentially draw you 24 cards, which is nuts. And then you got Mew that lets you choose a bench Fusion Strike Pokémon's attacks and copy it. So basically, best deck in the game, people are playing Fusion Strike. What is interesting, however, is that we got Fusion Strike Pokémon, and it came around in the imaginatively named Fusion Strike. And that was it. No more. All the Fusion Strike cards so far have come in Fusion Strike, and then nothing else. And here's the thing. We tend to see that we split the Pokemon TCG into blocks, into years. So at the moment we're in the Sword and Shield block, and we've just moved into year 3 with the release of Brilliant Stars. And you'll notice that in Brilliant Stars we did not have any Fusion Strike Pokemon. For what it's worth, no Single or Rapid Strike either, but they got a couple more sets. And today we're talking Fusion Strike, although I do think Single and Rapid Strike are also done. But not only that, over in Japan, they have since released another set, a mini set, Battle Region, which is going to be part of our Astral Radiant set. And would you believe it? Nothing. No Fusion Strike Pokemon in there, ladies and gentlemen. No Fusion Strike Pokemon in there at all. And although we've only seen the description in French, there is nothing in the Astral Radiance reveal or description, or whatever you want to call it, which would suggest there are any Fusion Strike Pokemon in that set either. And just like we stopped VMAXs when we went into year 3, and yes, I know there were a couple of VMAXs in Brilliant Stars, but, you know, like Mimikyu, for instance, but they were leftover ones from little Japanese sets, 100 start decks of VMAX Climax. They don't really count, I'm afraid. They were just we're just plugging holes at that point. There weren't any actual kind of really new ones. We were just filling in ones that Japan had had that we needed to get. So in the same way we stopped VMAXs when we went into year 3, it is really looking like we stopped Fusion Strike when we went into year 3 as well. Which means Fusion Strike occupies this weird space where we got it in one set, and we'll go through the cards in a moment. They are nuts. And that was it. One shot, done. Because there weren't any in Brilliant Stars or the equivalent Japanese sets. There's none in Battle Region, and there is no reason at all to think we're ever getting any more Fusion Strike cards, except for one. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we're missing Oricorio. Now, as a fun, super awkward side note here, if you are speaking English, you will call this Pokemon Oricorio. Not in Japanese, but in English it's Oricorio. And it was released in an issue of Korokoro magazine over in Japan. So if we use the name of the Japanese magazine with the English name of the card, we get the Korokoro Oricorio, which is one of my favourite card names ever. I love it. And that is a promo card, which is a Fusion Strike card. And it came out in Japan in that magazine, honestly, a little while ago at this stage. This was the issue of Korokoro magazine. Well, it was the November issue, which means it came out in like October time. That was months ago. And as it stands at the moment, absolutely nothing. As a comparison, 2 months earlier in the September issue, we did get Flapple, or Japan got Flapple, which has just been released in the one-pack promos, well, the one-pack blisters, for Brilliant Stars. So maybe it's coming? Could be. Point is, we're missing out Oricorio. Now, it's not particularly good. I'll be honest with you, it's not going to make or break your deck, but it is the one Fusion Strike card we're missing, and I mention it here partly because it's weird that it's missing, and partly because if this gets released, maybe it could end up in a future set. It's probably going to be a promo, but it could be in a future set. I don't want anyone using that as evidence that Fusion Strike Pokemon are coming back and they're not done. Just like the VMAXs in Brilliant Stars didn't really count because we were just clearing up. If and when we get this Oricorio, that will just be clearing up. And I actually have to just interrupt myself for a moment here. This is one of those videos I made in advance because my son is just about to be born. So I made a few which didn't seem terribly time sensitive, so I could keep bringing regular videos even when I couldn't work for a few days due to the whole brand new son thing. But it turns out there is a tiny bit of news coming in here, and that is the news that this Oricorio has actually been confirmed as being in one of the one-pack blister promos for Astral Radiance. As a fun little side note, there is also an alternate art of the Toxel, but it's not a new Toxel, it is literally just an alternate art of the Toxel that came around in Fusion Strike, so it's not a new card or anything silly like that, just a new artwork. This doesn't actually change anything that I've said, except for the fact that obviously this is now no longer a missing card. We do know where it's coming, but this is still just very much there's this promo that was released in Japan around when Fusion Strike Pokemon came out. We haven't had it yet. Let's whack it into Astral Radiance. It's cool, and it's wonderful, and I am very much looking forward to buying that and getting that Oricorio. So we do have confirmation of how it's coming. It just doesn't actually change the argument I'm making at all here. And I actually just need to pop in quickly and add a little note. I finished the video, but I'm just popping this in just here, just quickly. Yes, I know there was an Ice Cube in Brilliant Stars. Doesn't count. And the reason it doesn't count is it was in VMAX Climax, which was a product that came at the end of year 2 of the Sword and Shield TCG over in Japan, but there was nowhere else to put it, so it got popped into Brilliant Stars. It is a random one-off anomaly that came around because of VMAX Climax, so yes, I know technically we did get a Fusion Strike card in Brilliant Stars, but it doesn't really count. It certainly doesn't change my argument. Okay, back to the video. And I think this explains why the Fusion Strike engine was so good so quickly. Because if we look at the trainer cards, it is just absolutely full of ridiculousness. We've got Elisa's Sparkle, which lets you search for 2 Fusion Strike energy and attach them to different Pokemon. That is attaching 2 energy from the deck. And sure, it's as a supporter card, but still, that is absolutely ridiculous. Power Tablet lets you do an extra 30 damage on all of your attacks for the rest of the turn. Well, really it's going to be the one, but that's not the point. Point is, it's an extra 30 damage, which is absolutely nuts. And not to mention, Fusion Strike energy itself is actually really cool, because it prevents effects of abilities done to the Pokemon that has it attached. And bearing in mind, we've got stuff like Inteleon right now that drops damage counters with its ability and is nuts and sees a huge amount of play. Having protection from that is brilliant. Now, there were a couple of others which were cool, but I think it's fair to say not quite so game-breaking. Good cards, worth playing, not game-breaking. So we've got both Cross Switch and Cross Seaver, those new item cards that you only get the full benefit if you actually play the pair of them at the same time. And Cross Switch is gusting with a switch, which is clearly good. Cross Seaver gets you a supporter card or a Pokemon from your discard pile to your hand. Obviously fair to assume that it is going to be probably a supporter unless things are going wrong. And then you've got Chilean, Silent, and Crest, which lets you search for up to 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon, but bearing in mind that could include Genesect, which is your draw engine. That is actually sneaky better than a lot of people might think. And then we get to all the Pokemon. I've already mentioned Mew and Genesect, they are amazing, but it actually falls off pretty hard. So when these Mew decks first came around, Latias was very popular. Not quite so much anymore. Once during your turn, you can attach a Psychic Energy from your hand to your Latios. But mostly it's Dyna Barrier, 70 damage, and you're immune to VMAX's next turn. And you don't actually use that on Latias, you copy it with Mew for 2 energy, bearing in mind you've got Elisa Sparkle to accelerate the energy, and that's a little bit nuts good. There is, as a side note here, a really fun rogue deck to be made with Latios and Latias, because they each can attach a psychic energy from their hand to the other one, and then Latios just 210, discard 2 energy, Latias 70 damage, immune to V maxes. I'm not saying this is like some absolute top tier amazing deck, but I am saying it's a really fun rogue deck which is definitely worth playing around with, and you will get a bunch of wins against a bunch of really good meta decks, and you will feel very, very happy indeed. We then need to mention Meloetta, who is a ridiculous single energy attacker. It does 70 damage for each Fusion Strike energy attached to all of your Pokemon combined, but again, with Elisa's Sparkle to both accelerate the energy and, to Meloetta and to get it on the board to do the extra damage, it's a little bit ridiculous how fast and redonk that can be. And then the other one which has seen a bit of play is Oricorio, not the promo Oricorio, just a regular set Oricorio. It means you take 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon. It does not stack, but it can save some key KOs at times, which can be really good. If your opponent's doing 320, this will take it down to 300 and Mew will survive. It is very much worth bearing in mind. Now, there are a bunch of others, but they're just not terribly exciting. There's reasons why they're not seeing a whole bunch of play. So, Dragapult, I like in theory. Single energy, 30 damage for each of your Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. You're talking 180 for 1 energy with a full bench of Fusion Strike Pokemon. But the reality is it's stage 2 and it's just way too slow. Now, Hooper V is an interesting one. Remember, in the set, you've got to go full art. The regular version only exists as a promo. And this is the one that is both Psychic and Darkness. The attack is fine, but it hits 2 good weaknesses, so I've seen people playing it around with it. It is worth playing around with. Smeargle has some of the greatest art we've seen on a common card maybe ever, and it just lets you put 2 Fusion Strike Trainer cards from your discard pile into your hand. And that could be, for instance, 2 Cross Switcher, which would be cool, but it could also be things like Elisa's Sparkle, so you can get your energy next turn. Not seeing a huge amount of play, unfortunately. Deoxys is a little bit greedy and has all of the typings and is a pre-release promo as well, so you can literally get this card with 4 stamps, which amuses me greatly. And it's fine, 160 with a Fusion Strike energy attached, but again, it's not doing everything we might have hoped. It's fine, but it's really not an essential card. Toxtricity got a Fusion Strike version of it, and this was interesting enough. If all of your Pokemon in play are Fusion Strike, your opponent's VMAX loses 30 HP, and there's a way, and this one does stack, so you could potentially use this to bring down VMAXs into KOable territory, but it just ends up being a little bit awkward. Now, Gorbis and Huntail get bonus points for hating the other factions. So Huntail says that your opponent's single strike Pokemon's attacks cost 1 colorless energy more, and Gorbis turns off abilities of rapid strike Pokemon, like the aforementioned Inteleon. So again, these ones always seemed really cool. They don't really see a huge amount of play, but I do very much appreciate that they're there. And one that I want to play around with a lot more than I have already is Excelgor, because Excelgor, if it moved from the bench to the active this turn, it does 120 for a single energy, and that has got to be worth having a little bit of a play with. We end up, in terms of Pokemon, it's really Mew and Genesect, and Meloetta, I suppose, and then a bunch of interesting ones. And then in terms of trainers, it is a little bit silly, because you've got Elisa's Sparkle and Power Tablet, and that's really all you need, although there are some other interesting ones as there. Fusion Strike hit the ground running as an amazing faction, but since then, nothing. And in Brilliant Stars, we introduced V-Star, a new type of card. We introduced these character rares, a new type of rarity. But there was no Fusion Strike Pokemon. And I really do think at this stage it is absolutely fair to turn around and just say, yeah, they're done. They're just not coming back. Fusion Strike, huge when they came. Brilliant stuff. There's an Oricorio we're missing, which we'll presumably get at some point. But Fusion Strike seems to be one and done, and that to me is a little bit weird. But it does explain why the support was so much better in the first set than we saw for Single or Rapid Strike. Because Single and Rapid Strike had a few sets to expand, Fusion Strike really didn't. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, a weird story, one that interests me, but like I say, Fusion Strike may be over, we're not getting any new cards, but it is not over, because Mew and Genesect ain't going anywhere anytime soon. But now I want to know what you think about this. Do you find it weird we only ever got one set of Fusion Strike? Do you think Fusion Strike is overpowered? Tell me any of your thoughts about Fusion Strike. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.